G'day, Troy Dean, and welcome to another episode of the WP Elevation Podcast. I'm coming to you from the ridiculously beautiful Encinitas Beach here in sunny Southern California. It's just absolutely spectacular. I'll just let you have a look at that view of this is basically what I'm looking at here. It's just completely gorgeous, and I feel very blessed to be able to be sitting here on the beach with a few of my buddies, brainstorming and masterminding. And while we were here, we thought we'd make a couple of episodes of the podcast. So this week's episode, our feature guest is Nik Thakorlal, who is a lead gen specialist and has a software company called LeadsHook. He's based in Sydney in Australia. So we talk about lead generation, high yield lead generation. We talk about how to use surveys and quizzes to get high yield lead generation into your business. And we talk about some of the headaches and problems and pains in the neck with running a software company. It's a fabulous episode. You'll get tons out of it. Stay with us.
This is the WP Elevation Podcast, helping WordPress consultants elevate.
Hey, this episode of the WP Elevation Podcast is brought to you by WP Elevation. Well, more specifically, it's brought to you by a bunch of our happy customers. See, frankly, I feel a little bit awkward telling you how great WP Elevation is because you're probably not going to believe me because WP Elevation is my baby. It's something that we started over 3 years ago. Of course, now we're a team of coaches and mentors, and we have hundreds, and by the time you're listening to this, probably thousands of members all over the world. But it still really is something that I'm very passionate about. And of course, if you join WP Elevation, we make revenue and we make profit. So it's a little bit awkward if I tell you how great it is, because you probably think I'm just trying to sell you on it. And partially I am, because I know how beneficial the program is. So what I'd love to do instead is just introduce you to some of our customers. So if you go to wpelevation.com/thepodcast, all one word, you'll be able to hear some of those stories from our customers and hear for yourself how WP Elevation has impacted their business and changed their lives. I hope you enjoy that, and I hope you check it out at some point. Right now, let's get back to the podcast. G'day folks, Troy Dean here from WP Elevation, and we are here on the beautiful beach in Encinitas in sunny Southern California, and I'm here with my good friend Nik Thakorlal from LeadsHook. Hey Nick, how you doing?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Awesome, man. Thank you for joining us.
You didn't do that.
I didn't do that one. No, I
didn't do that. You got to do that.
There we go.
Otherwise, we haven't started yet.
Thanks for joining us, man.
Thank you
What's
for having
going on?
me.
Why are we here? What are we doing? Who are you? What's your background? And
Who am I?
What is art?
Can you put me to sleep?
Yeah. Look into my eyes.
Look into my eyes. That's right. That's right. Let's have an NLP session. Who am I? Nothing, man. I just focus on lead generation, to run a decent sized business, helping guys like you grow, come to Southern California, chill out.
And you've got a software company, right?
I do have a software company, yeah, but I've done quite a few things in the past.
Yeah.
At the moment, focusing on high yield lead generation.
Yep. How much of a pain in the ass is it to have a software business?
It's actually quite painful because it really is a step into the unknown. There's a lot of stuff you'll discover about yourself, and you'll also discover how much you don't know. And you'll also discover that it's far more difficult than what they tell you in the $97 ebook.
Yeah.
How to get a SaaS business in a weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work that way.
No. And you're not an actual developer, are you?
I do not have a software development background, which I think is an advantage because you don't have any blinders on when you come into it.
Right.
Yeah. So I didn't know that it couldn't be done.
You didn't know that it couldn't be done?
Yeah. So therefore you just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've been speaking a little bit about this over the last few days, but before we get into lead gen and talk more about LeadsHook, I want to learn a little bit about how you recruited your team.
I would run competitions. So I would basically, first you need to understand what you want to get done, not just now, but in the future, because you want to build a team that scales as your business grows. And that applies to any position in the organization. It doesn't have to be just software development. It could be your chief financial officer, your marketing person, or whatever it is. And so you get a picture or a vision of where you want to be in a few months or a few years from now, and you recruit for that. And so you come up with a project, or you come up with a test case or a test scenario that replicates what it would be like in the future, and you test them to that. So the test project is done for that. I hired people to basically fulfill the test or do the test, and see who delivered the best results, and I would have a bit of a honeypot sitting at the end of it. So the winner would take a few $100 or a few $1,000, whatever the job was, and that's how I started, because I figured because in a prior business, I've done quite a bit of recruitment. Interviews were never highly indicative, or certainly in my experience, interviews weren't highly indicative of, and that's probably because I didn't know how to interview properly.
Right.
But they weren't highly indicative of whether this person was gonna be a good performer or not. So I figured it was far easier, especially when you're developing virtual teams, to just make them do a test, and it requires them to kind of complete it successfully. But what I would also do is keep the results that they had to give quite vague, so that they had to also do some research and make assumptions and a whole bunch of other stuff that would normally occur in a real life situation.
Right.
Because very rarely is everything mapped out for you before you attempt it.
Yeah.
And so you also want to replicate that sort of a thing in your test.
How many people do you reckon you weed out?
Okay, so for every time I put up a project, you'd get about 30 to 40 people who would say they were interested in doing it. About 10 would complete.
Right.
Most would just drop out,
Right.
Even before starting.
Yeah.
And then off that, about 7 or 8 would complete successfully, and you'd normally have 1 or 2 or 3 people who were very good. In some cases, you had no one that was good.
Right.
And that's fine. You just rerun the test, or change the parameters a bit.
Yeah.
Or maybe I didn't market it well enough, so have another go of it, and see if you find someone else.
I think it's Seth Godin who once said, and it might not be him, someone will correct me, hire character and teach skill.
Yeah.
What I like about your approach, though, is that you're basically testing both in that one experiment. So you're testing their technical ability to solve the problem, but you're also testing their character, because if they're not resourceful and they're not creative and they can't problem solve, then they're not going to be a good fit for the team.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where did you learn this? How did you stumble across this?
Because my first 20 or 30 hires online were all disasters. Yeah. So
it only took you about 20 or 30 to figure there's something wrong here.
Yeah. That was like, maybe it's not them, it's me.
Right.
And yeah, so it's been an organic process. I didn't have a revelation one day or something of that sort.
Right.
It was just okay. Well, maybe try this, maybe try that, and then one day I was looking for a way to test them after I hired them to see if they were competent, and then it occurred to me that just give them the damn test as part of the recruitment. Yeah. And so if they crossed that hurdle, that showed a lot, because most people, as you know, don't show up, don't turn up.
Yeah.
And this ensured that they not just turned up, but also I'd keep the project vague enough that they had to really, of dig deep to deliver. Yeah. So and that's been the way I've recruited ever since.
Awesome. And your team are all remote?
100% remote, not a single person in Australia.
Yeah.
And all over the world, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about so you've got this software called LeadsHook, which we're going to talk a little bit more about in a moment. Yep. But it's essentially lead generation software, right? That's kind of the function that it performs, yeah?
Correct.
Why lead gen?
It's the one part of the business where if you can lead gen properly, pretty much you can solve any other problem by hiring people.
Right.
So if you throw money at any other part of the organization, you'll solve it. You can get yourself a chief operating officer, a chief financial officer, or hire yourself a good set of consultants to fix the other parts of the business. Because if you've learned how to acquire customers, then you've solved. I mean, that is the business. Yeah. There is no business unless you can acquire customers. Yeah. And so that is the primary function of any business or an entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, to acquire customers. But you don't acquire customers unless you've worked out how to put an offer in front of someone or some sort of a pitch. And so you want to solve that first. Once you've solved that, the rest is sort of detail. Right. It doesn't mean that I don't want to play it down that the rest of the stuff will solve itself, but it is a far smaller problem to have than the other way around, which is I've got this beautiful business, I have my accounting team in place, the operations are in place, everything's in place, but I've got no idea how to get customers.
Yeah, no customers.
Yeah, so that's a far more difficult problem to solve than the other way around.
And I love, yesterday we were talking and you were saying a buddy of yours was saying, wants to go into business, wants to start his own business, and he was going to develop a business plan. And your approach is, if you want to start a business, go and find your first customer.
That's it. Yeah. it takes the kind of like the BS out of the whole process.
Yeah.
That's not to say you shouldn't do. Now, having said that, if your business is to raise money, then your job is to go make a business plan.
Yeah, sure.
You know, because then you're going to show it off in front of people and show them a trajectory of high growth, and you know, we're going to exit out in 5 years and all that sort of stuff. And so now you're not in the business of acquiring customers, you're in the business of selling a business plan.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But end of the day, when you're going to open up your business, it is customer acquisition where it matters. Yeah.
And one of the things I really like about that is that when you, like the very act of going and finding a paying customer, you learn about the market, their pain points and what it is they respond to. You learn about the messaging that you need to put out that resonates with the market, and you learn about the product that you have to, the offer that you have to put in front of them to get them to take action.
Absolutely.
So it's a rapid learning cycle by actually going and getting customers to start paying you for your product or service. Okay, so let's talk about lead gen. We were talking earlier off camera about high yield lead gen. So what does high yield lead gen mean exactly?
Okay, so most of the people who do lead gen think that it's about getting a name and an email or a phone number. If you're doing offline, it'll be a phone number or an address. Online, generally, people just ask for a name and email, or in some cases, just the email. And unfortunately, that doesn't really tell you much. Sure, if your ad was about, I don't know, cat fighting, then the person is somewhat interested in cat fighting, otherwise you wouldn't turn up.
Cat fighting?
Yeah, cat fighting, yeah. Or underwater kickboxing.
Interesting niche.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. It's growing, it's an open market. Catfighting.com, catfightingsecrets.com.
Download the ebook.
Yeah, that's the JV, that's right. Yeah. Sorry, where was I?
I don't know.
It was a big night, guys.
So you were saying high yield lead gen. You were saying, you know, if you're doing online, it's collecting an email address and a name. If you're doing offline, it's collecting a phone number.
So then what happens is that normally you find, at least in the online world, is you capture the name and email and you try and present an offer right in front of them. Unfortunately, we don't know enough yet, except that they're interested in catfighting and they've given a name and email. Is that our Black Hawk picking us up?
Yeah, it is. I think it is. It's Uncle Frank Kern flying on a helicopter out there off the...
going to La Jolla.
Yeah, exactly.
Showing our ignorance here. And so it would be good to pick up other data about who they are before you present an offer to them. And the reason for that is because you want to see where they are in the marketing continuum or buying continuum or in essentially a sequence of have they bought the problem yet? And if they've bought the problem, then that's fine. Then you want to direct them to that they can solve the problem. At that point, you start looking for solutions, and then that's when the products and offers come in. And often, so just by capturing a name and email and knowing that they're interested in catfighting doesn't tell you where they are in that continuum. So if you present the offer too early, then obviously there's no sale, and some portion of the market will buy right away because you happen to catch someone at the phase where they're looking for a product. But in and of itself, just capturing just a few data points is not there. So the high yield investing is a bit much like high yield investing. High yield lead generation is a bit like high yield investing, where you want to capture a bit more about them so that you know where they are psychologically from a behavioral perspective, as well as what their beliefs are about their own problem. And you can do that quite easily with quiz questions and things of that sort. And that's why I've been my high yield is I think for the Michael Gerber one, people went through about 25 different steps before they gave their name and email. So we knew a lot of data about who they were. So behind that, you could have done any number of offers to them because you know exactly where they are in the buying continuum or the marketing continuum. And it just makes life much easier to then. So if someone tells you that they haven't quite bought the problem yet, then your job in marketing would be to sell the problem first.
Gotcha.
And then move them along the way. And based on how they answer the questions, you can locate them on the buying continuum.
Gotcha. And the thing I like about questions and surveys and quizzes is that it's interactive. So you're not just broadcasting a message to the customer, you're asking them to get involved in a conversation.
Right. Now, what we've also done is Leads Hook allows you to dynamically generate lead magnets.
Right.
So the pitch for the quiz is that we're going to give you something that's going to solve your problem or something where you're going to learn a bit more about who you are, rather than just a PDF.
Gotcha.
Because the PDF now, you're putting responsibility upon your lead
Yeah.
to go through a 25-page document or whatever that it is
Yeah.
to work out which bits apply to them.
Yeah.
But if they've answered the questions about what their problems are or what sort of solutions they're looking for or what benefits they're looking for, then you can dynamically generate the lead magnet or the thank you page or whatever you want to call it,
Wow.
so that it serves their need right away.
Right.
Now you just create a ton of value, which just means that they're more likely to share it.
Yep.
And you've just kind of offered a ton of value, which means that they're more likely to buy from you.
Right. So I'm still trying to get my head around the dynamically created thank you page or the dynamically created offer. We've been talking about this over the last few days. How does that work exactly? Like, without giving away the secret sauce, how does it work?
Sign up on leads.com. Mention Troy D. That's how you get the secret sauce. So for every answer or every question that you have, you can create as many answers as you want, and you can create rules or attach bits of content. Could be video, audio, images, combination thereof, with each answer. And as they go down the quiz funnel, the system automatically accumulates these pieces of content, which then it pieces together on the final page.
Wow.
And
that's very cool.
And so that's why. But not just that, we've been able to add some charting software as well that allows you to dynamically generate charts so that people can locate where they are to help them take to the next level.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And we were talking last night about the optimal funnel, working out the optimum sequence or pathway from someone opting in via any kind of traffic source and opting in for any kind of quiz or any kind of offer, and what's the optimum pathway that they take to then buy. And so you were saying that you've been able to build multiple kind of funnels and then turn off the ones that aren't working and just optimize the one that is working. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So if you're buying traffic, or for the matter anything, you can pass a lot of data about where this person is coming from. So for example, if you're doing Facebook ads, you could pass the interest, you could pass their age or age bracket or bucket. You can also, so if your ad was about a certain emotional appeal, you could pass that as a tag in the URL tag as well.
Gotcha.
That this ad was about greed, or this ad was about wealth, or whatever it was. And you can. So now you have all this data available about where this person came from. Then you have all the quiz questions and answers that they gave you. So you've captured a whole lot of data about what path they took through your survey. And now finally, you're able to give them the emails that you could track that as well as the offers that they had and the products they bought. So after you've had, let's say, 1,000 sales or whatever, you could literally take all the data, put it into a pivot table, or you could do a funnel inversion. You flip it over and you start from the sales and you say, well, where is all these sales coming from? What are the majority of the people that bought? What do they look like? So the quiz questions will give you behavioral and psychological data about them. The traffic source data obviously comes from the traffic source. And then the product and revenue sales data comes from your shopping cart or whatever platform you use to actually generate the sale. So now you know exactly where the majority of your sales come from, but a whole lot of psychological data about them. Now you can take all the data back out and go back into other traffic sources, whether it be Google or back into Facebook, and redo your campaigns based on this extra intel you have now about who are these people that are buying your stuff.
Gotcha.
But not just that, you can also split test offers. Like, so for example, if person A may see an offer for $5, another may see it for $100. And so there you also want to optimize price because there are market segments that only buy on a particular price. And if you have a product that can be dynamically changed, you could actually literally serve many market segments, even if it's the same product at different price points.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm processing. I'm going to have a look at this later. I know you're going to show me a little bit later. So if there was one thing, let's just switch gears a little bit and look at it.
That's what makes it high yield.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, and for those that don't understand, high yield is what we're basically trying to do here is maximize the return on investment, right?
Right. Yeah. Rather than be seduced by volume of leads. It's more about the quality of the lead.
Yeah. Because
So
the myth is, and I've made this mistake so many times myself, is that let's just turn up the ad spend. Let's just throw more traffic into the funnel. That's not always the answer, is it?
Let's scream louder.
Yeah.
It's a bit like that.
Yeah. From a business point of view, if there was one thing you could fix about the business, not so much the product, but the team, the business, if there's one thing you could fix in the next 30 days, what would it be?
In my business?
Yeah.
Or
you can fix it in mine if you want.
Yeah, sure. Let's fix it. Yeah, let's work on yours. Sleep. Let's get inside your head.
There's lots of room in there.
Yeah. All right. In my business, actually, we're kind of doing okay. The only thing that I would fix is I'd probably add a lot more. Actually, have a lot more customers give more feedback, which we're working on now. So we've opened up the channels for more feedback from the beta users.
Yeah.
In what ways is LeadsHook not serving you? And if it were, and then whatever we get, we'll then see if it adds value to lots of other people. Because there are some feature requests that we get or changes that are requested that actually they're more kind of, I'd like to have that, but it adds no value to the software, which means it adds no value to anybody else.
Yeah.
So we like to, every feature we get, we'd like to see what's the value of this to the entire group of users.
Yeah.
And if it's going to turn your lead gen into more high yield, then that's something that we want to deploy right away.
Do you have a criteria that you go through to make that decision? Because you were saying last night that you try and add features pretty quickly.
Yes.
So you have a criteria that you go through to sort of triage which ones you're going to work on first?
Yeah, so rather than using use case, which normally people do in software development, we like to, I like to call something called value case, which is what's the value of this feature. And by value, I mean how much more money can someone make if this was deployed.
Gotcha.
And that usually goes to the top of the queue.
And
so if you tell me, I want my page a little bit wider, there's no value to that. But if you tell me that, I'd like to add video in my answers, then we'll add that as soon as possible because that just makes sense.
And how much of this is based on your gut feel and your experience as an entrepreneur, and how much of it is based on sort of quantitative?
No, it's all quantified. Yeah.
Right.
So we obviously can't quantify everything.
Yeah.
But the point is that there are two metrics we want to look at. Number one is does the value of LeadsHook increase itself to a new prospective customer? Like, holy crap, you guys are doing this video thing. No one else is doing it. So I'd like to sign up. So that's one way of seeing value. The other one is the existing users.
Yeah.
Will they get value right away?
Yeah.
And if so, how much would that be worth?
Yeah.
But we prioritize existing customer base before prospective customer base.
Gotcha.
You got to look after your current users first.
Yeah. You can do this offline too, can't you?
You can do it in any business.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the whole high yield lead gen thing,
absolutely.
We're talking specifically about online surveys and funneling people through a series of questions, but you can do this offline.
It's about the pitch. So if I just say, give me your name, give me your name and phone number because I want to sell you more stuff, no one's going to give you anything.
That's right.
But if you say, well, you know what, we're doing some research about this, or we're looking for a new way of helping people buy houses, or whatever it be, it's far more subtle, and people are more likely to give you information about themselves because it helps them. And so you really need to look at it from their perspective.
From a technical point of view, is LeadsHook, it's a SaaS, and I'm thinking in terms of the WordPress consultants watching this, it's a SaaS where you set up all the quizzes and everything inside, and then there's just a bit of JavaScript is there that you place on the website?
A small script, you put it anywhere you want.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
and it's fully responsive, so you can put it in one of the sidebars.
So what if some of our audience are consultants, they have multiple clients, can they run multiple quizzes on behalf of clients?
Correct, because each quiz allows you to set up its own tracking.
Right.
So let's say, for example, because most of your clients or most of their clients will have their own Google Analytics accounts.
Yeah.
So you can set up each quiz to go to a separate Google Analytics account.
Wow.
So that way you don't have to. So we've made it fairly flexible and scalable, so that way you can out of the one account you can run it for everybody else.
Wow. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So if you were really specialising in lead gen as a consultant, you could have one LeadsHook account and run multiple surveys for multiple clients and just add massive value.
Correct.
Yeah. Do you have you probably don't because it's early days, but do you have a reseller or an affiliate program yet?
Not yet.
Is that something that you're thinking
about?
Yeah,
we are thinking of that.
Yeah.
But what I really want LeadsHook to do is the LeadsHook to sell LeadsHook.
Right.
So we're creating a quiz on LeadsHook.
Yeah.
that just by the process of going through it,
Yeah.
it will be a demonstration that generates a lot of value,
Gotcha.
so that you yourself will be interested in buying. Well, at least that's the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, whether we're able to achieve that is remains to be seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. What's the URL where people can check out Leadshook?
Leadshook.com.
Leadshook.com.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, man. Nick, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you.
And let's get back to hanging out here in Encinitas.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the WP Elevation podcast as much as I did. Again, I just feel very blessed and lucky to be sitting in this amazing setting, talking to my mates about online business and masterminding with each other and making these episodes of the podcast for you. And please subscribe to the podcast. Go to wpelevation.com/iTunes, subscribe to the podcast, give us an honest rating and review. It really helps us come up in the search results and get the message out to more WordPress consultants. I will look forward to seeing you next week on the WP Elevation podcast. Until then, go elevate.